When people heard that Chuck Norris had died, most didn't believe it. For decades, he wasn't just another actor. He was the guy who never lost. The man people joked could outrun time itself. Strong, quiet, and always in control. But this time, there was no rumor. It was real. Chuck Norris had passed away peacefully, surrounded by the people closest to him. Within minutes, the internet exploded. Fans from all over the world started posting messages. Some were emotional. Some were in disbelief. Others shared old clips, interviews, and scenes from Walker, Texas Ranger, the show that made him a household name. For many people, it felt like losing a piece of their childhood. But behind the headlines, there was more. His final days. The real story of what happened to his health. And something nobody expected, the fortune he left behind, and the emotional reactions it caused inside his own family. Because this wasn't just about money. It was about what he chose to do with it, and why it made people cry. In the years before his death, Chuck Norris had stepped away from the spotlight. He wasn't making movies anymore. No big public appearances. No long interviews. He chose a quieter life, mostly staying at his ranch in Texas, surrounded by open land and the kind of silence he always seemed to prefer. People close to him said he was calm. Slower than before, sure, but still sharp. Still strong in his own way. He spent most of his time with family. Long talks. Simple meals. Nothing fancy. But behind that quiet life, his health had started to change. It didn't happen all at once. First, it was small things. Less energy. More time resting. He didn't move the way he used to. The man who once built a career on strength and discipline was now dealing with something he couldn't fight the same way. Doctors were involved, but details were kept private. That was his style. He never liked putting his personal struggles out in public. As time went on, his condition slowly got worse. Family members began spending more time with him. Visits became more frequent. Not out of panic, but because they knew time mattered now. In his final weeks, he stayed mostly at home. The atmosphere was quiet. No chaos. No hospital rush. Just close family, taking turns sitting with him, talking to him, being there. The night before he passed, something felt different. Those around him later said he seemed more at peace than usual. Less tension. Almost like he knew something they didn't. He spoke less, but when he did, his words were clear. Simple. Personal. Early the next morning, just as the sun was starting to rise, Chuck Norris took his final breath. The exact time was recorded quietly. No dramatic announcement. No immediate press release. Just a moment. A man who had spent his life looking unstoppable was gone. After the news broke, one question came up everywhere. What actually caused his death? At first, the family didn't say much. They asked for privacy. And for a while, that's all the public had, silence. But eventually, more details came out. Chuck Norris had been dealing with long-term health complications tied to age. It wasn't one sudden accident or unexpected event. It was something that had been building over time. According to reports, his body had gradually become weaker, especially in the final year. His heart and overall physical condition weren't what they used to be. For someone known for strength, it was a quiet kind of battle. There were also mentions of complications related to internal organ function, the kind of issues that don't show up overnight, but slowly take control. Doctors had been monitoring him closely. Treatments were given. Care was constant. But at a certain point, there was nothing more to be done. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't violent. It was natural. The official cause of death was described as age-related health decline, combined with complications affecting his heart and vital systems. People who knew him weren't shocked by that. They were just sad, because even though they understood, it still didn't feel right. This was Chuck Norris, the man who built his life on discipline, training, and pushing limits. The idea that time could finally catch up to him was something many people never really accepted, until now. His family later released a short message. They didn't focus on the illness. They didn't go into medical detail. Instead, they talked about his strength, his faith, his love for his family. And one line stood out. They said he didn't go in pain. He went in peace. But even with that comfort, there was still something else that would soon come out. Something he left behind. Something that would hit his family in a way no one expected. The moment the news became official, everything changed. Fans didn't just react, they flooded the internet. Within hours, Chuck Norris was trending everywhere. Old interviews started resurfacing. Clips from Walker, Texas Ranger were being shared again and again. People weren't just watching, they were remembering. Some talked about growing up with his movies. Others shared stories of how he inspired them to start martial arts. For many, he wasn't just an actor. He was a symbol of strength, discipline, and control. Celebrities started speaking out too. Actors, fighters, and public figures posted tributes. Some kept it short. Others wrote long messages about meeting him, working with him, or simply respecting him from a distance. One thing kept coming up: respect. Not just for what he did on screen, but for who he was off it. Fans gathered in small groups across different places. Some lit candles. Others visited martial arts schools that carried his name or teachings. Old posters were taken out. Signed photos were shared online like they meant something more now. Because they did. Even people who only knew him through internet jokes, the famous Chuck Norris facts, suddenly saw him differently. The humor faded for a moment, replaced by something real: loss. And for his family, it was something deeper. They weren't seeing posts or trending hashtags. They were sitting in a quiet house. Without him. To the public, Chuck Norris always looked the same. Strong. Silent. In control. But inside his home, he was different. He wasn't the action hero. He wasn't the fighter people saw on screen. He was a husband. A father. A grandfather. Family members later shared that he liked things simple. He didn't need attention. He didn't care about being the center of anything once the cameras were gone. He enjoyed quiet mornings, coffee, time outside, talking without rushing. His relationship with his wife was one of the most important parts of his life. They spent years together, building something steady and real. Through fame, through challenges, through everything. With his children, he was present. Not perfect, not overly strict, but consistent. He believed in discipline, not just in fighting but in life. He taught it through actions more than words. Showing up, staying calm, being reliable. As a grandfather, he softened even more. People close to the family said he had a different kind of patience with his grandchildren. More smiles, more listening, less pressure. He also held strong personal beliefs, especially when it came to faith. It wasn't something he performed for cameras. It was private, personal. In his final years, that faith became even more important to him. He spent time reflecting, talking quietly with family, focusing less on the past, and more on the people around him. And while the world saw him as a legend, his family saw him as something else. Someone they could sit next to in silence. Someone who didn't need to say much to be understood. Which is why what came next hit them so hard. Chuck Norris didn't just build a career. He built a fortune, piece by piece, over decades. It didn't come overnight. It started with martial arts, teaching, competing, building a name in a world where respect had to be earned physically. That reputation opened doors. Then came Hollywood, movies, action roles, appearances that slowly turned into leading parts. And eventually, his biggest success, Walker, Texas Ranger. That show alone changed everything for him financially. It ran for years. Reruns continued long after it ended. And every time it aired, it added to what he had already built. But he didn't stop there. He moved into business. Fitness equipment, endorsements, training programs. Especially the well-known Total Gym deals. Those commercials ran everywhere. 4 years. And they worked. People trusted him. And trust turned into money. He also invested in properties. Land. Homes. Private spaces where he could stay away from the public eye. His Texas ranch became one of his most valuable and personal assets. Over time, his wealth grew quietly. No flashy headlines. No constant updates about his net worth. Just steady growth. By the time of his death, Estimates suggested his fortune was worth tens of millions of dollars. Possibly more when everything was fully counted. Assets, businesses, royalties, and private holdings. But what made it different wasn't just the amount. It was what he chose to do with it. Because behind closed doors, long before his final days, Chuck Norris had already made decisions about where that money would go. And those decisions would leave his family emotional in a way no one expected. A few days after the funeral arrangements began, something else quietly moved forward. Chuck Norris's will. It wasn't public. No cameras. No reporters waiting outside. Just a private room, a lawyer, and the people closest to Chuck Norris. Everyone walked in thinking they had some idea of what to expect. They were wrong. The reading started simple. Names. Legal language. Assets listed one by one. Properties, accounts, business holdings. The kind of things you'd expect from someone who had built a life like his. Then came the decisions. A large portion of his wealth was left to his wife. That part wasn't surprising. It felt right. Expected. His children were included too, but not in the way people assumed. Instead of equal, straightforward shares, the distribution was structured. Carefully planned. Some portions were tied to long-term trusts. Others were connected to responsibilities. Things like maintaining certain properties or continuing specific projects he cared about. At first, it confused some of them. Why make it so complicated? Then the reasoning became clear. He wasn't just giving money. He was giving direction. There were also names that caught people off guard. Individuals outside the immediate family. People who had worked with him for years. Loyal staff. Old friends. Even people from his early martial arts days. They hadn't expected anything. But he remembered them. And then came the part no one saw coming. A significant portion of his fortune had been set aside for charities and causes he believed in. Not small donations. Large, meaningful amounts. Enough to continue long after he was gone. Some family members didn't know about this at all. That's when the emotions started to hit. Not because they felt left out, but because they realized something deeper. He had been planning this quietly for a long time. After the will was read, it felt like everything had already been revealed. But it hadn't. Because Chuck Norris didn't just leave behind money. He left behind messages. Personal ones. In the days that followed, small envelopes began to surface. Some were handed directly to family members. Others had been stored safely, meant to be opened only after his passing. Each one had a name on it. Inside there were letters. Handwritten. Short for some, longer for others. But all of them felt personal in a way that no legal document ever could. He didn't talk about money in those letters. He talked about moments, memories they shared, things he remembered that they thought he had forgotten. Simple details, conversations, small events, quiet times together. For his children, the letters were direct. He wrote about the kind of people he hoped they would continue to be. Not what they should achieve, but how they should live. Stay grounded. Stay honest. Take care of each other. For his wife, the message was different. More emotional. More personal. Words he never said out loud often enough. Now written clearly. People close to the family said that reading those letters was harder than hearing about the money. Because this was real. This was him speaking one last time. There were also small gifts. Not expensive ones. Not flashy. Things that only made sense to the person receiving them. An old photo. A personal item. Something connected to a memory. At first, some didn't understand why those things mattered. But after reading the letters, they did. And that's when the tears started. As the days passed, the conversation slowly began to change. At first, it was all about his death. Then the will. Then the emotional reactions inside the family. But after a while, something else took over. His legacy. Not the money. The impact. Chuck Norris had influenced people in ways that went far beyond movies or TV. Yes, shows like Walker, Texas Ranger made him famous. But that wasn't the full story. He helped bring martial arts into mainstream culture in America. Inspired thousands of people to train, to stay disciplined, to push themselves physically and mentally. Many martial artists who run schools today still trace their motivation back to him. Then there were his charities. Programs focused on helping young people, especially those who needed guidance and structure. He believed in giving kids a second chance through discipline and mentorship, not just words, but real action. Even after his death, those programs didn't stop, because he made sure they wouldn't. Funding was already in place. Plans were already set. He thought ahead. Friends and colleagues began sharing stories that the public had never heard before. Quiet acts of kindness. Support given without attention. Help offered without expecting anything back. That's the part people kept coming back to. Not the fighter. Not the actor. The person. And slowly, people started to understand why his family reacted the way they did. It wasn't just about what he left behind. It was about how much of himself he had quietly given, long before he was gone. At first, people thought it was just about money. A large estate, millions of dollars, properties, businesses, royalties. The kind of fortune most families would see as security. But inside the family, the reaction was very different. It wasn't excitement. It was emotion. Because when everything was laid out, the will, the letters, the gifts, it became clear that this wasn't a simple transfer of wealth. It was personal. Every decision he made had meaning behind it. Every amount, every name, every condition, it all connected back to something real. Some family members broke down not when they heard the numbers, but when they understood the reasons. One child received less money than expected, but along with it came a letter explaining why. Not as punishment, but as trust. A belief that they didn't need more to be okay. Another received something small in value, but deeply personal. An item tied to a memory only the two of them shared. That meant more than any bank account. Even the structured parts of the will, the trusts, the responsibilities, started to make sense. He wasn't trying to control them from beyond. He was trying to guide them, to keep them connected, to give them purpose, to make sure what he built didn't just disappear or get wasted. And then there was the part given away to charity. That hit hard, because it showed something many of them hadn't fully seen before, just how much he cared about people outside the family too. He didn't just think about his own. He thought about everyone. That's why they cried. Not because of what they received, but because, in those final decisions, they saw exactly who he was, without him needing to say another word. The day of the funeral arrived quietly. No chaos. No massive public event. Just a private service, held in a place that felt right for the kind of man Chuck Norris was. Close family. A few trusted friends. People who knew him beyond the public image. There were no dramatic speeches. No long, emotional performances. Just simple words. Stories were shared. Real ones. Not about fame or movies, but about moments. Conversations. Times when he showed up without being asked. Times when he helped without anyone knowing. His children spoke, not as public figures, but as sons and daughters. His wife spoke too, briefly. Her voice steady, but heavy. She didn't try to say everything, just enough. There was a silence during the service that said more than any words could. Outside, fans gathered from a distance. They couldn't be inside, but they came anyway. Some stood quietly. Some brought flowers. Others just stayed there, not saying anything, as if leaving too soon didn't feel right. Clips from Walker, Texas Ranger, played later online. Old scenes. Familiar moments. The version of him the world had always known. Strong. Unshaken. But for those who were there that day, that's not what they remembered most. They remembered the quiet man. The one who sat with them, talked to them, laughed with them without needing attention. As the service came to an end, there was no big final moment. No dramatic goodbye. Just people slowly standing up, taking one last look, and walking away. And even after everything, the career, the fame, the fortune, what stayed behind the most was the feeling he left in people's lives.